Welcome, everyone, to Defending Our Children. Today, we have Seak Smith as our guest, and she is a mother of three. She's an entrepreneur. She's a branding specialist. She is an event coordinator, and she is the founder and general of Mom's Army. She's an ally of ours. I have gotten to know her fairly well and have just really enjoyed the time with her and enjoyed and respected her integrity and her moral courage and her powerful voice as a mom and an advocate and just a warrior for truth. So, Seek, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on with us.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah. Well, look, we're just going to celebrate what you do a little bit and give it a chance to kind of share your journey and some of your lessons learned and some of the things that you think people need to know. So we love this show is all about defending the little ones. How are they in jeopardy? What needs to happen for us to stop it? People ask me every day, Craig, what can I do? What can we do? You're one that's in the fight with us and in a big way. So there'll be a lot of chance to share a lot of that today. So we can kind of kick it off however you'd like.
Yeah, so I'd like to share that, Mom Army, we're new. We just launched about 7 months ago as an organization. And in that short 7 months, we have about 20 chapters forming across the country. We have a chapter in Canada, a chapter forming in Australia, and one in the UK. So it's been really incredible to see the growth. And it's also the narrative that comes out of this kind of growth is that this is so needed. There are people who are frustrated with what's going on when it comes to the exploitation of children, safeguarding them, and they've had enough. That's what we hear all the time, and they want to do something about it. And so Mom Army is actually a survivor-led organization. About 70% of our leadership are survivors of child sexual abuse, trafficking, childhood traumas, domestic violence. And so that gives us a very unique perspective in terms of how we fight this, because
Yeah.
a lot of our members come from the place of being a victim themselves and
Yep.
wanting to make sure that they can do what they can to keep children from going through what they had to go through, the abuse that they had to endure. So I think that's one of probably the unique aspect of our organization. But our overall mission is to protect children and their innocence. And the innocence part is so current to what's going on right now as we're watching the innocence of children being chipped away.
Well, it really is that innocence that seems to be the target
Mm-hmm.
from the evildoers. It's really, really upsetting to observe and see what's going on. And, there's so many ways that the truth needs to come out. They say sunlight's the best antiseptic for any sort of
Mm-hmm.
evil or corruption. It really is the case. And you can, man, it's when you study it from the quantum physics level, when you observe it from the practical everyday level, or from the spiritual direction, it's all the same, man. Truth needs to win out. It's just
Yeah.
what has to be. The
Well, we've
deceit
been
is what seems to be facilitating so much of the harm.
Yeah. Well, we've been propagandized for, I think, all of our existence. If you really start to pay attention and if you're searching for truth, you'll start to notice and realize that it's been an illusion. Even myself personally, I thought that we were a society that protects children, right? Protects children and the elderly. And we, in fact, not only do we not protect children, we actually harm them. Many of our institution does the complete opposite of what they claim to do. So that's been a jarring reality to come to terms with in terms of how we fight this effectively.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, a precious little soul, a child, all they know is innocence
Mhm.
until life bites them and harms them and traumatizes them and takes that from them. And man, we owe it to them to give them an easy transition into adulthood. And I think the longer we can safeguard them and let them just play and be happy and learn and just love, surround them with love, the stronger and more productive they're going to be for the rest of their journey here in
Yeah.
this life, as they develop and grow and elevate, if you will. And it seems to be the targeting is about preventing them,
Mhm.
intentionally preventing them from having that intended trajectory for their life. Whatever their life's path could have been, it seems to be that the evil ones really want to just traumatize that little mind, that little soul, and just wreck their understanding of things and their perception of things, and kind of take that life that might have been intended for them away.
Yeah.
And it's ugly. It's ugly, but it's important to kind of recognize there is a war. There's a war on children,
Mhm.
and it
Yeah, it's
doesn't
actually our
just
hashtag.
yeah.
We deem, everything about Mom Army is very intentional. The heart in our logo is about protecting children and love for children. The Mom Army being, using the military lingo because we have to treat this as such. It is a war on our children. The attacks are relentless. It's coming from every direction. We need to strategize. We need to figure out what the tactics are that's coming at us and the tactics that they're using to take away our children's innocence. And until we really understand what's at stake here and what is being done to our children, we're not going to win this war. So yeah, so we actually, our hashtag is actually stop the war on children.
Yeah, man. Well, anyone that's studied Sun Tzu or has been in the military for any length of time, they know that it's important to understand your enemy,
Mm-hmm.
what their motives are, what their objectives are, how they make war, so that you can counter them and defeat them. And so many of the American people right now are not aware that there's a war going on at all against our nation, and the war against our children is part of that.
Right.
And it is ultimately, it's a spiritual conflict. All the chaos and dysfunction we're witnessing are symptoms. They are
Mm-hmm.
just symptoms of this conflict
Yeah.
between the base forces of good and evil. They are at fever pitch conflict, and we're witnessing all this, and it doesn't make any sense until you kind of take a few steps back and consider it from the spiritual perspective and realize, okay, there's a struggle for control,
Yeah.
and that part of that struggle is just hammering the little ones
Mm-hmm.
and destroying
It's
their little lives.
basically what there's this video of this, ex-KGB,
Yuri
when he's
Bezmenov.
Yeah.
yes, Yuri Bezmenov, when he talked about subversion and, learning about that, and you can clearly see it. I come from my dad escaped communism and genocide in Cambodia in the 70s. So I correlate that ideology of communism and breaking down the family and separating children from their parents and turning the children against the parents and indoctrinating them and propagandizing them. It's all happening for us here. And I see it, it's so brazen and it's glaringly in our face. But some people, like you said, Craig, aren't even aware that we're in a war.
Yeah, well, they didn't teach us how to fight this type of war in the military, and
Mm-hmm.
they should. It should be compulsory, basic training. This is the nature of how our nation is under attack, and it's only allowed to pervade this extensively through deceit, and that's why the enemy has, in this case, has been spent decades, if not generations, buying up media control, big tech control, academia, all of it. You can, in addition to Yuri Bezmenov's lectures on ideological subversion, the 45 communist goals that Forrest is holding up there,
Yeah.
those were read before Congress in 1963. We knew what our enemy was after, but as a nation, we failed to heed that warning and recognize it. And the enemy has gotten so much of what they were after already accomplished. It's been catastrophic for the United States. So,
Yeah, they've advanced.
that
They've
has
advanced
to,
quite a bit.
yeah. And they're using politics, they're using political correctness to keep us from pointing at it and calling it what it is. Oh,
Yeah.
just be tolerant for the sake of tolerance and allow every manner of harm. Well, that's a trick of the enemy. We must not allow that which is harmful or kill our children or us. Right?
Mm-hmm.
There is such a thing as speaking the truth and righteous indignation. That's what we're to do if we mean for people to be safe and free and have any peace. So, folks, we're going to talk more about that on the other side of this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Defending Our Children. We're talking with Seak Smith, founder and general of Mom's Army. We were talking about the nature of this conflict. Why are people attacking the little ones, the children, with such coordination? And why are these things happening that seem bizarre, that seem unlikely, that seem unreasonable? Why would we have these bizarre cross-dressing, very vulgar displays of hypersexuality and perversion performed upon and in front of our children in elementary school, and who could condone that and pretend like it's not traumatizing for the little ones and problematic, and where does that even come from? So, you know, I've been communicating with more and more special operations veterans who have started seeing this and started growing spiritually and learning what's happening, and coordinating and going, wow, man, there's a spiritual energy and direction behind this attack. And it's not just, transvestites dancing in front of elementary schools. It's the whole grooming. It's the murder in the womb. It's the child trafficking at industrial scale. It's the cover up of it. It's the targeting of mothers who stand up at school board meetings and calling them domestic terrorists. It's all of it and more. And it doesn't make any sense until you realize it comes from a very sick place. Mm-hmm. And it is intentional. The harm, the hostility is intentional. And we do have to recognize the nature of the conflict, bizarre as it may be. We can only be effective at defending the little ones if we understand it. And Seak is in the fight. We celebrate her for it. So what do you think of all that, Seak?
Well, I mean, it's for those that are new and trying to understand and see, they gaslight you and they lie to you and they try to tell you, don't believe what your eyes are seeing. No, that's not happening. That's not happening over there. Look over here, right? So there's a lot of distractions, but, we've been having to hammer home that this is happening. We're not making it up. It's clearly out there for everyone to see. If you want to find the truth, it's there. You're choosing to be blind. But I think there's a lot to unpack and a lot to have to try and help people understand, because it is overwhelming. And what is happening is all of our institutions are captured in multiple ways, right? Some of it is captured in a very sick and sinister way, where you have basically the agenda of pedophilia seeping into our institutions. And so they're changing language and so that they can change laws. So then all of a sudden consent becomes, oh, you can consent to have sex with a child, or a child can consent. So they're moving the goalposts and they're moving it little by little. And that's why now that we're here, we're like, how do we get here? Well, they've been at this for decades. This is not new.
Very insidious.
They're insidious, and we haven't been paying close attention. For those of us that are in the fight, we've been seeing this coming. But I think the other side of trying to unpack and understand all of this is the money behind it, right? They have made children a commodity, right? The selling of children, the trafficking of children, all of that is making very sinister people a lot of money. Even if you go into the abortion issue, and there's so much money made there, and then you weave in and thread in all of the evil that is coming along with this agenda, and then going back to communism, genocide, and the Communist Manifesto, and they've been telling us that this was their plan, and we didn't take it seriously. And I think what we need to do is really take a look at this issue. And the challenging part now is sounding the alarm too, right? Getting people to be aware so that they can be activated to take action. Because our silence and us just living our lives is what's gotten us here. We always say in our group, everyone's like, I was just trying to raise my family, but I've had no choice now. I always say ordinary moms turned into warriors, because they've had no choice. If you can sit back and watch all this happen to our children and do nothing, we've got a problem. So we're looking for those warriors to join Mom Army and be part of this battle and to really fight for the future of our children, because it is really unfair if we don't stand up for what's right and fight for them. We are leaving this battle for our children to fight themselves, and that's really unfair. It is not their battle.
Agreed.
Seek, have you noticed there is one strategy that I recognized a long time ago, but it seems like anytime you're on the opposite side of an argument, the opposition always says you have to compromise. Mm-hmm. So if you take your position and their position, all compromises occur from the middle towards them. It never goes to
Yeah.
from the middle back to what's right and what's helpful for the kids. And I've noticed that that's a strategy, which
Well,
really,
that comes from Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals.
Mhm.
This is all leftist doctrine. These people are the lowest scum. I mean, these are some lost, very dark and disturbed souls who come up with this stuff
Yeah.
and these tactics, and it's very destructive.
Yeah.
And the beauty in it that I see with this whole conflict is that those who love enough to defend are rising. They're standing up and saying no more.
Mhm.
We love the little ones enough to say no more and take action and stand up against it. See, when we've been sitting back and taking our hands off the wheel, the demons have just driven the ship into the rocks every single day, and it's catastrophic, and we can't survive it. This is unsustainable. So people are being shaken awake out of our comfort zones,
Mhm.
and here in America and in other places, and realizing it's not going to be okay. They will not stop. They will never stop until we make them stop. Evil has no limit. There's no degree to which it would stop against the children until we force them to stop and leave the precious and innocent little ones alone. And I do celebrate those who find the moral courage and they stand up and they're like, I'm not okay with this anymore. This has gotten too sick, too dark, too depraved, and too harmful and too traumatic for too many. And I don't care anymore about anything else. I'm going to stand up for the little ones. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it's healthy. The pendulum has to swing back toward the middle, back to sanity and peace and protection and love. Love has to win. This hatred against the innocent is just, it's so creepy and weird, and we all have to unite against it, or it will just continue to get worse.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit of what's really interesting in terms of how we fight this is we have to unite. I mean, that's part of the reason why when we started Mom Army, it was really with the with the intention that we're not going to be a keyboard warrior group. We're not going to just sit and complain on social media and online, that we would get our hands dirty, be boots on the ground. And so, a lot of our work entails, protest tomorrow. We're going to join our coalition partner, Erin Friday of Our Duty. She's having a D-Trans Awareness Day rally. So a lot of the children who were being harmed with the transgender ideology as children are now speaking out against it. And so they're having this rally at the state capitol in California. But then there's opposition coming out, threatening violence, threatening to shut it down, and trying to intimidate, because once the truth comes out, more people will wake up. They can't have that because that doesn't support their narrative, and they're going to lose. And so we have to find, like you said, the moral courage to forge forward despite the threats, despite what's happening, because if they shut us down, we retreat and we retreat back, we're never going to win this fight. And so those are the things we're doing on the ground. It's these protests against these, overt, like you said, over sexualized, and not even over, but just very sexualized, trans, what do you call it, drag shows. And so we're protesting those. Some of our members across the country are testifying at Senate hearings and hearings in the state houses to pass bills to protect children. So for us, anything that is deemed worthy to support and back in terms of protecting children, our members are out there, supporting bills and, speaking up about it and doing anything that we can, but I think the big part is getting that message out there and really waking people up and changing hearts and minds. I think a lot of people are just immune to a lot of this stuff. They're not, because of the way media is, right? We're not all getting the same information.
Yep. Long overdue. Stand by, folks. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Defending Our Children, everyone. We are on with Seak Smith, founder of Mom's Army. It's been a great conversation. I see people standing up, Seak, and I am encouraged. There's conflict, but that conflict has driven good people to stand up and find their voice. And we've sat back and allowed the unthinkable to ensue. And now's the time when there's a great awakening happening, and people are lighting up. It's increasing, and it's happening rapidly now. And I'm getting more and more phone calls and text messages and emails from friends from all over the world that are saying, Craig, what's happening? Like there's an awakening, like there's something going on right now. I'm like, yeah, I think the battle is increasing, but also the awareness of the good people. I think the people on the side of good are starting to wake up to it.
Yeah. I think they're being
And
called. They're being called to duty.
very much so. Yes,
Mhm.
very much so. And it's a privilege. So it's through the coordination. You were talking about we have to unite. Yes, ma'am, we do. Are you kidding me? Divided, we fall.
Yep.
And our enemy knows that. And divide and conquer is a well-known strategy because it works.
Mhm.
And it's been used against us extensively. They've created new ways to divide people here in the United States. There are ways that I never could have conceived of before. They've got us to divide it into so many categories, and it is a trick of the enemy. We are all siblings. We are all souls here. In 3D temporary, skin suits, these bodies, and we're all facing a lot of the same struggles, and we're all working on ourselves. And man, we are soul siblings, and it's a lie that we are so divided, and it's ugly, and we have to get over that. I see so many people, especially on the religious side. Well, if you don't Jesus exactly the way that I Jesus, then you're not welcome to Jesus at all. And it's like, hold on. Nobody made you the judge of everybody else. It's an individual journey. How about a little bit of love? How about you show a little bit more Christ-like compassion rather than the judgment? And same thing on the political side. The one side of the political aisle seems to not have any standards, and so it's very monolithic, very united. And on the other side, everybody's so critical of each other. Well, if you don't America exactly the way I America, then you can't America at all. It's like, no. We're all Americans. So settle down. United we stand, folks. We must unite. So you hit on a very important point there. A lot of people have to get their egos out of the way in order for us to salvage our freedom and our peace.
Yeah, I mean, as an organization, we structured Mom Army and Dad Army, and we can talk a little bit about Dad Army too, to be a coalition of those that want to protect children. So we can have our differences in the political realm, in the religious realm, in lifestyle, whatever you want to call it. But we, like you said, put your ego to the side, put your difference to the side, and focus on the mission, which is to protect children. And so we make that very clear. We always tell people when you join our group, you might not like it being done. You might do it a little bit different, but we have to put that aside. And so our group consists of people from many different, religious upbringings, political leanings, just all the things. And we partner, which is why I reached out to your group, and we wanted to partner with the incredible work that, Veterans for Child Rescue has been doing. My thought is, hey, if we lock arms and we find, you do what you're really good at, we do what we're really good at, we find some crossovers where we can support each other and help advance each other's missions and each other's goals, that's where we can be really effective. So one of our biggest partners is Gays Against Groomers, and we get a lot of flack for that. We get people who don't want to work with us that are on the Christian side because they are, they don't like that we partner with Gays Against Groomers. We partner with Landon Starbuck Freedom Forever, with her organization. We partner with a group in California called Freedom Angels, and they're helping our California team get very effective at the state capitol. Saturday, we do Saturday leadership training every Saturday for all of our leaders. And Saturday's training is with the Goldwater Institute, is coming in to train our group on filing public records requests, a FOIA request. How can we implement tools and tactics and strategies to be effective? If we've got corrupt school board officials, we need to figure out how to get them away from their seat and how to remove them. And so for us, it's put the differences aside, put the little minor, disputes aside, and then let's focus on the mission at hand.
Here's a question I have for everyone. What do we want more? Do we want to get our way, or do we want countless children to be spared the unthinkable? Which do we want more? Each of us has to look ourselves in the mirror and ask that. And I think if people slow down and pause to chew on that for a minute, they'll realize, hey, look, man, we got to put a lot of things aside for the little ones because they're worthy. Yeah. They're worthy. And what's happening is not okay.
Yeah. And I know I would love to talk about our newest project that we just released a trailer to a documentary that we worked on with our friend Simon Esler out of Toronto. Is a up and coming filmmaker who is an incredible storyteller, very talented with everything he does. He's very well researched, and he is the leader of our Dad Army. So we started building Dad Army, realizing like all of these moms and women are out there, you know, out in the field, out in the battlefield, and we need the strength of men. And what society has been doing to men, diminishing men and the role of men and how important men have been to our, you know, our civilization. We want to bring that back. So the counter narrative through a lot of the projects that we're working on, especially in film and campaigns like this, is that we want to uplift men. We want to uplift good men, good fathers, and show the example of how we can rebuild our society to be a healthy and thriving and loving society again. And so this film by Simon is called Cut, Daughters of the West. It really covers the transgender craze. And we use the word craze because it has become somewhat of a cult, and it has overtaken, especially our young girls specifically. I think in the UK, the stat was a 4,000% increase in girls transitioning to boys. And so the film really attacks it from the perspective and the history of plastic surgery and how we have conditioned our society and especially our young girls to hate themselves and to hate their bodies and to get breast implants and to, you know, have all these augmentations and changing their bodies to try and find, you know, some relief in terms of how they feel about themselves. When the truth is we need to be teaching our young girls and our young boys to love themselves, that they are perfectly designed exactly the way they should be.
Yes.
And we need to get that message out there because we're going to lose an entire generation of children and youth if we don't start uplifting them and telling them that they are perfect as they are. And so we're excited for this film. The trailer is out. If you go to our Instagram, the trailer's there. And the website is daughtersofthewestfilm.com. You can get the trailer. You can pre-order. The official world premiere is April 15th, actually here in Phoenix, Arizona. We're inviting the press and getting the message out on the film. Our goal is to save lives with this film. We don't inject religion into the film. We don't inject politics into the film. We really are just talking about how can we turn this around? How can we save our girls and our boys, you know, from being swept up into this gender ideology.
I love that. Seek, we got a minute left. Let everybody know how to find and support you guys and what you do.
You can go, Instagram is where we do a lot of our stuff. So it's the.momarmy and the.dadarmy. Our website is mom-army.com. So check us out, you know, get in touch with us. We're looking for more leaders who are willing to lead a chapter in their area. So thank you so much for having me on. And this conversation is to be continued. There's so much to cover.
Yes, ma'am. We appreciate having you on. And, you know, it's just so beautiful seeing people stand up and people finding each other and uniting and making the effort to defend the little defenseless ones. And it's just a beautiful thing. We celebrate it. So thank you for all that you do, Seek. And everybody, we invite you to come back for the second half of her interview with us. And otherwise, join us next time on Defending Our Children. Welcome to Defending Our Children, everybody. Today, we have Miss Seak Smith on our show. She is the founder in general of Mom's Army. She is an entrepreneur. She's a mother of 3. She's an event coordinator. She's a woman of many talents, but she is, in my mind, a champion for children because she is one of the precious few who have the moral courage to stand up and speak the bold truth without fear. And she inspires many. And I'm here to give her a platform and encourage and promote what she's doing. I think if I could multiply her, if I had a magic wand to do that, I absolutely would. So Seek, welcome back on to the show for the second half of our chat with you.
Thank you. That's an incredible introduction. I appreciate that. Yeah, we're trying to ignite and activate all the warriors out there to step up and rise up and protect children. So that is our goal, and working with, you know, Veterans for Child Rescue and trying to accomplish that goal and supporting each other. I think that is how we're going to win this fight. Yeah,
it's amazing how many good things can happen when we just take that first step. You know, evil does prevail when we do nothing, and it's in that awakening and that ignition process for each of us to go, wait a minute, I'm not okay with this. I'm not wanting conflict. I'm wanting peace. Well, the other side's not allowing peace. The other side are like, zombies with rabies, just completely tearing everything apart. And then until we stop them, there will be no peace, especially for the precious and innocent little children. So it's a process where we're seeing people waking up, and it's beautiful to observe because love has to win.
Yeah, and this is not about politics. It's interesting, even using terms like the other side, or that when the way I think you and I speak, and I don't want to speak for you, of course, when I say the other side, I'm talking about the side that is attacking children. I don't care what your political leaning is or anything like that. If you're attacking children, you're my enemy. You're on the other side of this.
Yeah, for clarity, what I mean is those who are doing evil. Those who are bringing harm and chaos, who are the takers, and those who are destroying this world. There are exactly two forces in this universe, good and evil. Everything that is aligned with the creator and what is good leads to building up and healing and life. And everything else at the bottom, the dregs, is the dark black distortion that tears down and leads to sickness and death. So those are when I say one side, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. No, I figured we were on the same
good and
page
evil,
there.
but yeah. And the force of evil uses politics against us. It uses the educational system against us. Or I should say abuses. It abuses every privilege and power and authority it can get its hands on, its wicked clawed fingers on, and abuses and distorts and destroys literally everything. So, we good people, we're peace lovers, but we have to love peace enough to make peace, to make it.
I saw a really good post. Somebody said, you want peace, so you do nothing, right? You don't get into the fight because you want to stay out of it, right? But there is no peace if you don't get into this fight.
Yeah. Sadly, the evil does not yield to mild suggestion, to mere suggestion. It doesn't. It takes, unless somebody
stops it. Yeah.
Stops them. And that's we have to face that fact. That's how things work. And it's a privilege to step up and stand up and grow into those kind of champions for children, if you will. Forrest?
So, Seek, your family coming from Cambodia, you understand that peace and freedom are not free.
No.
You understand, and I think that a lot of people have lost that the people like Craig have basically written an open check for their lives so we can have freedom, so we can have these discussions. And what's happening today is people today are saying you can't have these discussions. And that's what what I see Mom Army and Dad Army standing up saying, look, we're going to have these uncomfortable discussions because we've had enough.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment?
It's definitely, I think for me, because of my family's history and my dad, I actually, a podcast interview I did about my dad's story is on Freedom Records with Morgan Zegers. And I go into depth about making the correlation with everything that we're dealing with and all of the chaos that Craig has been talking about. It's interesting you brought up Saul Alinsky in the previous segment. That is their tactic, is to create a lot of chaos and to create instability and to separate families. And for me, the one part that I narrow in the most is the propagandizing and indoctrination of children to turn them against their parents. And so once you do that, you can break down a society a lot faster. And that's exactly what happened in Cambodia. Once they took over, they were separating the men into one concentration camp, the women into a separate concentration camps, and the children. And then what they would do is put the men and the women into labor camps to do unbearing, backbreaking labor. And then the children, they would indoctrinate them with propaganda music, telling them that the state is who they should be loyal to, and there were horrific stories of children killing their own parents in Cambodia. That's how bad the propagandizing was. And they're doing it here. If you look at some of the stuff that's coming out of the schools, they're transing children behind parents' back. There are counselors and teachers doing things against your will and doesn't even inform you. And if you try to ask questions, they make you go file a FOIA request. They say they don't have to share the information with you. They don't have to tell you what they're teaching our children. So we're in this place, in this really weird place, especially in the education system, that this takeover has happened. The takeover of education system, it's been captured. And we better come to that realization very fast to figure out how we are going to do this, because they know that the way to take over, you take over a young person's mind, you're good. You've got power, you've got control.
Number 17 on the communist.
Yes, sir. Good point. Yep. It's so much of it's in there, and people need to just type into their search engine 45 communist goals, and there'll be dozens of links. Click on it and read that list. You will be horrified at how much of it they've already gotten accomplished since the late 50s. When we first had that document.
We just had people share, there's been this investigative stuff in the schools where these very woke teachers are coordinating across the country on how they can capture our kids to go out and protest for their agenda, not ours. They are capturing our children to do the bidding of their activism. That is some scary stuff. Teachers are supposed to be teaching, not turning our children into their activists. But and I'll send that over to you guys. That's been coming out this morning. That investigative reporting has been seeping out.
Yeah, look, if your agenda requires deceit, your agenda is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we thought that they should be teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's what we grew up learning. And they're teaching them other things that have nothing to do with a school curriculum.
Yeah.
But I think the American people need to recognize that there's so much censorship and manipulation of the public discussion, and the dark side needs deceit, because what they're ushering in is unthinkable tyranny. They need deceit. They have to have it, because people will not vote for their own demise willingly. So it's all lies. It's all deceit. And again, if you need deceit to force your agenda on the people, your agenda is evil. It's bad. And so where does that leave you? So we need to know.
Time to take action. Time to rise up. That's where it leaves us.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. And people like you inspire others to stand up and go, wow, well, why is she able to stand up, speak out, and make a difference, and not me?
I got an incredible group of warriors standing right beside me in this fight. So I mean, I'm certainly not doing it alone. There are many incredible. I mean, our Charlotte chapter leader in Charlotte, North Carolina, she's a mom of 14, and she is out there. She's got a protest this weekend. She's out there every weekend fighting this, and rallying people around her. And she's doing incredible work. And I just want to give her a quick little shout. Lisa is amazing. She's a grandmother. It's the hill she's going to die on. Is to protect children. Yeah.
Right on. Folks, we'll be right back with more Defending Our Children. Welcome back to Defending Our Children. We're talking with Seak Smith from Mom's Army. Seak, you were just talking about some of your members and other champions for children. Share with us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we have a process. So if you go to our Instagram or you go to our website, there's an application actually. If you are ready to rise up and ready to be a leader in your local area for this fight, we are still accepting applications for battalion captains, so chapter leaders. We have about 20 forming across the country. And I was just mentioning our chapter leader, Lisa, who does incredible work on the ground there in Charlotte. And she's got 14 children. To clarify, 11 are hers and 3 are adopted, and she's got a couple of grandkids. But she does incredible work. And I know the struggle is always time, right? I don't have the time. I've got a job to go to. And that's very understandable. But the way we've built Mom Army is we want to create a platform where you can plug in, where it aligns with you and your lifestyle and where your soul, feels the most called to do. And so every one of our chapter leaders lead a little differently, depending on the local issue that is really prominent. In North Carolina, there seems to be a ton of these all ages drag shows. So she's been protesting almost like every other weekend. I feel like Lisa and her group on the ground is there. Our Nashville chapter leader has been very active in the legislative process. They just passed 2 bills recently in Tennessee. And so Lucy helps us with production work because she was a producer in LA for 20 years. Yeah. People to bring different talents and different skills from from different backgrounds. So we have members that have graphic design skill. We have members that have, writing skills, and we have members who are really good on social media. And so they bring so much talent and gifts that it really works, across the board. Our California team is actually the most active. We have 8 chapters forming in California. Our Sacramento chapter leader, she's another one. She's got 7 children of her own. and she goes to the Capitol once a week to make sure she's building relationships with legislators. And so we do a lot of training to help equip our leaders with the skill sets they need, or anywhere there's a knowledge gap, where they don't quite understand what's going on in the legislative side, policy side. And so we're always asking and getting feedback as to what is it that you want to learn. And so that's really important to us, is to build that support network across the country. We have chapters internationally now. We have an Australia chapter. Alyssa runs that chapter, and she is an incredible data analyst. She takes data and she turns that data into infographics to help educate, people more. And so she's going to be contributing in that way to our group. We have a wonderful UK chapter, Elaine. But yeah, I want people to know that when you feel called to help and you feel called to protect children, I think if it doesn't have to be us, if you want to plug in with Mom Army, please reach out to us. You can DM us, you can email us, but please plug into any group that aligns with you and what you want to do. I think that's the biggest message I have is, to find some place where you can commit, if it's 1 hour a week, or if it's, 5 hours a week, whatever it is set the expectations for yourself. We allow people to kind of be very fluid in how they are activated with Mom Army. Some chapter leaders are a lot more active and some aren't. And then in those chapters, what we try to do is bring on other leaders. So like our Seattle chapter has like 3 leaders, right? Just so they can all lean on each other and support each other. Some chapters just only require 1 leader, so it varies.
Seek, I would say there's 2 things that I would recommend volunteers do if as it pertains to time management. Number 1, quit watching network TV, quit watching the news, especially, and because it's programming us to think a certain way. Number 2, on Sunday, plan out your calendar. And if you can only give 1 hour a week, then you pick that time frame and put it on your calendar. If you can do 5 hours, put it on your calendar. And that is probably the easiest, simple thing that you can do to volunteer.
Yeah, that's a great tip, because I'm like that. Everything has to go on my calendar. Everything's carved out on my calendar, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a phone call, whether it's lunch with somebody, whether it's I've got to sit there and write a press release. It's all allocated in my calendar. So
you almost have to these days. If you've got a lot going on, a bunch of irons in the fire, man, it's easy to miss things if you don't have some sort of calendar function that I set alarms and everything in my life now. I have to. Yeah. Even Forrest knows to reach out to me like, hey, we're on a call, man. Are you with us? And I'm like in the middle of something else. I'm like, oh man, I have to jump in. But it's good. It occurs to me too, Forrest, we want to support Mom's Army with rescue roast coffee in whatever way we can. I think people do that much good work need to be supported with the right caffeination.
Our moms love their coffee.
Indeed,
we love that rescue roast. We're just having fun with it, and grateful that have that in addition to everything else.
And I think that's so clever when you're collaborating and you're partnering with different companies. We're partnered with Public Square. It's an alternative economy app that lists businesses that are aligned with our values. So we're not giving money to these woke companies. So for us, it's like, how can we support each other, whether there's the business side or nonprofit? We're not, just to reiterate, we're not a nonprofit. So we partner with nonprofits like your group and the Gavel Project, which is our legal partner. Because we have to, sometimes, we can do all the protests we want. Sometimes we have to sue people.
Well, back to Public Square. That's very important. We used to, if you listen to Dr. Shiva, he points out that the American people used to boycott very effectively in a lot more unison, like I think he said 40% of the American populace would align on certain things and force the hand of big industry corporations that were either abusive or whatever. And if we learn to unite in that way and stick together, We
That's
can vote with our wallets and
Mhm.
force some of these companies that are betraying us all,
Yeah.
whether it be, hostile legislation, supporting hostile legislation against children, or whatever may be the case. We can force their hand by taking a lot of our dollars out of their pockets if only we'll pay attention. And that's why I celebrate and support, efforts like Public Square. It's important for us to recognize where our dollars are going, and in so many cases how it's being used against us, our own
Yeah.
hard-earned dollars.
Yeah. That's why it's so important to inform people of these things too, so they can make these educated decisions. And like you said, voting with your dollar is probably the easiest and most effective thing you can do if you really want to be in this fight. That we really share that with our group, and so it's really important to be part of the battle in that way as well.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Awareness, knowledge is power, man. If you know how things work and who's doing what with your money, it allows you to choose. Okay, what am I going to support? Here's a product of one type or another. There's several big companies that offer it. Well, what do they stand for? Is one, going to defend my children and my nation and my peace and freedom, or is it going to take those things? Is it got some woke, executive staff and a bad agenda that's harmful?
Yeah.
And
We
we
didn't
can
used
make
to
our
care
decisions
it.
accordingly.
Yeah, we didn't used to care so much what the politics of companies that we were patroning were doing, but we started to care when they started canceling us, right? They didn't like our politics, so they started canceling us. They didn't want to do business with us. And we're like, okay, well, if you don't want to do business, if you don't want to take my money, I'll happily take my money somewhere else, So
Yeah.
that's where we're at now.
And it's what they're also doing is they're strategically finding businesses that they tee up, and they're trying to create a scenario where they can cancel them and then use that as an agenda. And oftentimes there have been companies that have been accused of something that isn't real. Okay. They may have an owner that has a specific value set, but the company itself, they're not discriminating against different groups of people. But they get accused of that and then they get canceled. That's what I've seen. I know you've probably seen it as well.
Yeah, a lot of deceit, a lot of manipulation, man, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, folks, we're going to jump right back into this on the other side of this break, but we do have to cut away, so stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone, to Defending Our Children. This is our last segment with Seak Smith of Mom's Army. Seak, I know you've got a lot of irons in the fire. There's a lot that you guys have been doing. Let's talk a little bit more about future projects and what you guys have on the schedule or on the horizon ahead of you.
Yeah. So I think for us recently, we've been reassessing what has been working and what we're really good at as an organization. It's a very active group. We have wonderful, great leaders in our group. And so we are trying to be organized in how we strategically educate the public about what's going on, because that's the biggest challenge, right? If we're going to wake more people up, or if we're going to activate more people to get involved in this fight and in protecting children, we also need to find very clever ways to educate. And given social media, and people have so many ways to consume their what they're learning or what they're wanting to listen to or what they're paying attention to, where we built what we call our content creation team that is full of very talented writers and producers and filmmakers to put together content to educate the public. So we're excited to roll out some really special projects to educate people on, some of the key players that's been really pushing this narrative to harm our children and to take away their innocence. So people like Alfred Kinsey, we're working on some really, deep research and deep dive into, his very nefarious and evil, abusive, work, hiring pedophiles, right, to do his quote study on children. So we really, I don't think the general public knows that there's a Kinsey Institute in Indiana University. It's being very well funded, but it was founded on the grounds of someone who was abusing children. And personally, I'm not okay with that. I don't know if the public would be okay with that if they knew. And so we're looking for very creative ways to educate the public on a lot of these nefarious characters and issues that seem to be affecting children.
Yeah, well, we exposed Kinsey pretty extensively in Contraland, and I celebrate anyone who helps go after the funding and helps expose the fraud He was
Yeah.
a science fraud, very
Hmm.
sick soul, and
Yeah.
he needed help, but
Yeah.
instead he was allowed to harm countless little ones and really start a culture, a normalization campaign that's been a cascading avalanche of destruction,
Hmm.
and has led to an epidemic of child harm. And
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking to see how extensively he was allowed to politic from all 50 states in the
Mhm.
USA against our political, not our political system, but our psychological healthcare system, our legal system, and our educational systems. He hit all three of those very successfully to soften them, to
Yeah.
normalize the idea of child harm in the
Yeah.
form of child rape. It's just it's an education on what must not ever allow to happen again.
Yeah. And so we're dividing our team into research teams to do more deep dives, to investigate more things. We're looking to bring on investigative journalists onto our teams. And so for us, it's really, we're in the phase of trying to put, systems in place so that we can be more effective in how we get the information out and how we share and make things shareable. I think that's the age that we're in with Instagram and all of the different social medias. You have to put content out that's very shareable, that can go viral, that can reach more people. And so we're looking to be more effective in that area. And so we have all these research teams and different, with the different projects and stuff. So that I'm super, super excited about that, because what we get from our members is, I feel like I'm not doing enough. What more can I do? Like we
Right.
we actually have that problem. I feel like I give them enough, like a lot to do, but I spoke to our DC chapter leader this morning, and she's like, I feel like I'm not doing enough. Is there anything else I can help with? And so she's excited personally herself to be on one of these committees and research teams.
Well, Dr. Judith Reisman's last study that I'm aware of before her passing last year was that the CIA was funding Alfred Kinsey's falsified studies in an
Wow.
attempt to normalize child rape. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why that agency could justify that funding
Hmm.
and support for such a horrible abuse. So I'll get to that report. We'll make it public.
Yeah.
I've got to reach out to the Reisman Institute now that she's passed on, and make
Mhm.
sure that we're welcome to
Yeah.
publish that
If they would
publicly. If
like to
it's not
share that.
already, it might be up on her
Mhm.
website. But if
Yeah,
it's not,
if we can help take the information that they've already discovered and help package it and put it out there to the public and get it more, get it to the masses, we're happy to help support that if that's one of their missions with the reports that was received. I
thank
did
you.
not know that. That's crazy.
I'd
Yeah,
like to
it's a
add,
crazy times, Forrest.
I'd like to add that the Kinsey Institute, Dr. Or Alfred Kinsey, who was operating in the 50s, one of to give you a context of what he was doing, he had one experiment where they were taking children as young as 15 months old
Mhm.
and seeing how many orgasms they could have in a 24-hour period.
That's
So that gives you the level of craziness of what
gravity.
the Kinsey Institute was doing.
Yeah, that child's
Mhm.
not sleeping if it's been tested. That's 20. That's around the clock testing. What does that look like? My God, like who would do
That's
that? Who would
abuse.
even think to do that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be having such a sick, twisted mind to even come up with such a concept and then to act on it and to record it and to turn it into a report and to try and justify, right? You're standing on pedophilia and you're standing on children's sexuality, which is not a thing. It's never been a thing. It never will be a thing. Children, there's no such thing.
Well, I want to restate for everybody's edification out there the reason we know that it's so traumatizing for children for that to be done to them is that we talk to the adults. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's only 40 years after the fact that they are healed enough to even admit it and talk about it. But it is heartbreaking, the
Mhm.
trauma and the pain and the suffering that comes to the children that are sexually abused. And
Yeah.
just because an adult doesn't see it as abuse, well, I don't see any blood. Or, yeah, I mean, we just have to realize children are not wired that way. Their little spirits, their souls are not geared for that. It's not intended. There's a deep harm and trauma that comes from that, and it'll never be okay. and we
Their
must
life
never
changes
allow
forever.
ourselves, we'll never allow ourselves to be beaten into submission to say that it's somehow okay, because we know that it's not.
Yeah, we work with, as I stated earlier in the other segments, is that, our group comprised of a lot of survivors. So we know this to be true as well because of some of the work that I've done, in healing. I've done healing retreats for survivors. So it is traumatizing and it is life altering, and it changes the trajectory of their life forever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to this day, when I walk into a room, my wife jumps.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, baby, we've been married for 30 years and I got nothing but love. She goes, oh, it's not you.
Yeah.
It's that.
It's just
It's that
wired.
when someone walks into the room, that's what used to happen. And she goes,
Mm-hmm.
it's deep. I can't
Yeah.
fix it, baby. So
Yeah.
it's painful, but she's healing, but it's just one tiny example of what this does.
Mm-hmm.
So it's lifelong unless God just really intervenes in a miraculous healing. Well, Seek, look, we got 1 minute. I want to let you tell everybody how to find you and support what you're doing.
Yeah, you can find us mostly on Instagram, and we have Twitter too, but Instagram, the.momarmy, and then the.dadarmy. On our website, it's mom-army.com. Connect with us, DM us, send us an email. We'd love to hear, if you're ready to be activated. We're here to support that mission, and if you want to join our mission. But if not, find another group to plug in with. Just get in the battle.
Yeah, well, folks, we're allied with Mom's Army and Dad's Army for good reason. We believe in what they're doing and they believe in what we are doing. We are allies. We just want people to stop harming the little ones. Mm-hmm. It's really that simple. So God bless you and yours. We'll continue talking and coordinating as we go. Thanks for coming on the show today, Seek.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right. Stay tuned and or actually join us again next time, everyone, on Defending Our Children.